Hey everybody, this is a quick tutorial on how to use CSS positioning. It's a great way to position elements on the screen wherever you want them, put them wherever you want within the container, within the HTML window. You can also use it to create what's called sticky items, things that will stick to the screen as you scroll, things that are fixed in position. So yeah, let's get into it. So there's 5 different positions that you can use in CSS, and we're going to go over all of those, and they are static, relative, absolute, fixed, and sticky. And I've put together this page real quick. I did a bunch of CSS just to style these boxes up here. Then I've got all the content here in this HTML, and then I've got a separate style sheet here that I'm just going to use for the positioning, so I can just keep it nice and clean. And just to explain really fast, this class that's called .main is this entire blue container. There's also a container called parent that is just containing these children. And then each child has their own class down here as well. Got a nice little family. So we're going to get into the first position, which is called static. So that is just a position, colon, and static. And this is actually the default position, so there's really no need to put that in, but just to put it in and show you that it actually doesn't change anything aside from what you're used to seeing. So static is just aligning things on the page the way that they naturally fall in the HTML. So you can see I've got this header 3 parent, and then these 4 divs, child A, B, C, and D, and they're all just falling in line with that. So static positioning is the default positioning. It's how it normally goes in the page. So the next position is called relative. And what relative does is it moves, or it places the position of the item relative to its original position. You see if I just put in position relative, nothing changes. And that's because you have to put in CSS to tell it basically where you want it to move relative to its original position. So if we put in bottom 25 pixels and right 25 pixels, then it's going to displace this 25 and 25 from its original position. And you can see it moved it up and to the left, even though we put bottom and right. And that's because it's moving at 25 pixels from the bottom and 25 pixels from the right. So if you want to move this down and to the right, like you would think that this would, you would do top 25 and then left 25. And we refresh, you can see it moved it down to the right. And so you can see it keeps, it saves the original position, it preserves it, but it just shifts it down from its original position. So it's relative to its original position. Now if we change this to the next one, which is called absolute, and save it, you're going to see a big change here. Now you see child A jumped up here, child B moved up to where child A was. Actually, let me just put this on child B so you can see it's a bigger difference here. Okay, so you see it just goes straight from A, C, and D. B is jumped up here, and so instead of it being displaced 25 and 25 from its original position, it's displaced 25 and 25 from the entire HTML window. So this is basically taking this element and lifting it up out of the flow of the HTML, and it's just kind of its own free-floating thing, and you can place it wherever you want onto the window. And so it's great for placing things exactly where you want them. And again, it works, opposite of what you'd think. If you put 200 pixels top, it's going to move it 200 pixels down from the top of the page. And so that's how absolute positioning works. And then there's an interesting thing that you can do with absolute positioning. If you have these within a container, if you set the parent container to relative, the one that we talked about just before, then it sets the absolute positioning within that container. So now instead of being displaced 25 and 25 from the HTML page, it's 25 and 25 from this parent container, which is right here. And you can see I can explain what this other container looks like by moving this one up here to the main, which is the entire blue container. And you can see it's 25 and 25 from that entire container. And again, it still displaces, it doesn't leave that space where B was. It puts it where it wants to go without leaving that space. So that is absolute position. The next position is called fixed. And it does pretty much what you would think that it would do. Let me show you it on that main container actually. So position fixed, I spelled position wrong. Oop. Okay, so fixed position stays in place as you scroll. And you can see I've got this crazy boring stripe background, but it's to show you that that is keeping this in place as we're scrolling down. So if there was other HTML content on this screen, it would be loaded as well, and this would be coming over the top of it or going behind it, depending on what the z-index is. And I'll explain z-index later on if you don't know what that is, but it's basically tells elements what order that things are in front of each other on the page. If you think about everything kind of being stacked up on top of one another in like this third dimension that you can't see, that is the z-index. And so fixed position does that. It just leaves it in place. I mean, we could also do it with an an element within there, and see it's going to pull B out of its original position, and it's going to be its own free-floating element, kind of like with absolute, but it's just going to float and stay on the page. And so this is handy, you know, if you want something, again, you can use the code, and it's recommended. So you can place it, say you want it 25 pixels from the bottom, and you just want it to hang there. That's where it stays, down at the bottom of the page. This is handy for whatever kind of notice you want to pop up. You can, you know, treat these containers and these classes how you would like a normal thing if you want to do some animation with them, or have them contain links or whatever. It could be a floating navigational menu. You know, whatever you're feeling, you can do that. But that is how you make an element fixed to the screen and scroll with it. And the last one is similar to fixed, but it's a little bit different, and it's called sticky. So we're going to reset this. And there's a lot of fun stuff you can do with sticky positions. And so we will do child B. Again, we'll do position, sticky. And again, this is one that you have to have some extra coding in. You can't just do sticky and expect it to do anything. But you have to throw in your position codes, top 25 pixels. And what that does is, as we scroll down, when child B gets 25 pixels from the top of the HTML page, it's going to stick. And then you notice once we get down, it stays within that container. And we just keep going. So it doesn't leave the confines of the container, and as we go up, it just gets back in its position. So you can see we scroll down, it gets caught, and then it goes down again. And so that's what sticky does. It's pretty cool. You can do a lot with this. You know, we could make all of these sticky, and I'm just going to show you some kind of neat tricks you can do with sticky positionings here. So if we have all of those on sticky, you can see they're going to stack behind each other as they go. And this is what I was talking about with the z-index. And so how these things naturally fall on the HTML page is how they're stacked, you know, on the z-axis. So D is in front of C, is in front of B, is in front of A, you know, is in front of the parent container. So you can see as we go down, A goes behind B, behind C, behind D, like that. So what the z-index does, the default is set to 0. And so if I go to like child B here, and I set the z-index to -1, and save it and refresh, it's actually going to go behind this parent container, because this parent container has a z-index of 0, but now this is less, so it's actually back behind that, just kind of hiding it there. And so if we set these, think about how I want to do this here, set this to 3, set this one to 4, so that way D is going to go behind C, and C is going to go behind B, and so forth. Now when we go down, A is going to stay in front of B, in front of C, and really we could have just set A to 1, and it would have done the exact same thing. But there's something else I'm going to do here in a minute that will make a difference. And so I wanted to just show you that, how they're kind of stacking on top of each other like that and going down, and then they'll all just unfold in order also. So if you do a bit of math with your pixels, you can do some really neat things. So each container here is 30 pixels tall, and so I've got them all stopping at 25 pixels from the top of the page. And so what I can do is basically have them all stay together and then pull apart at the end. So if I do a little math, so that's 25 plus the 30 of those, it's 55. So I'm going to add 55 to this and make it 80. Then I'm going to add 55 to this, it'd be 135. And then if I add 55 to that, it'd be 190. So we're just adding 55 pixels every time. And then what happens when we go down is they all stay together as a group, because they're all catching at those different pixels. So right here, right as soon as it catches, this one's 25 from the top, this one's 80 from the top, this one's 135 from the top, this one's 190 from the top, and they all just keep their original position. And then we get here, they all just kind of stack in front of each other like that. And uh, one last thing that you can do that I was messing around with this, I've created like a spacer here just to add some extra spacing onto the page. And so this would be, you got your content up here, you scroll down, now you've got your sticky element, and these elements are sticky and going down. But you can also create something to have them fold back up at the top and kind of unfold as you go down. And that is where the bottom positioning comes in. So what you can do is basically take what you have and reverse it. 190 there. Do bottom 135 there. And so on. 80 pixels. And 25. And then what that gives us is this neat little thing where they unfold as we go down. It looks like it's off a little bit. That's alright. So, but anyway, they come down and they unfold, boop, boop, boop. And then as you go through and keep going, they fold back in. So yeah, lots of neat stuff you can do with positioning. Again, those are static, which is the default, relative, which is relative to its original position, absolute, which is anywhere on the HTML window. There's fixed, which will leave it in position on the window, go in with the scroll, fixed with scroll, and then sticky, which is stuck until you get to that part of the viewport and then keep going through. So yeah, that's CSS positioning for you.